Look at that. Not bad. 8:31. We're starting to gather. Wonderful, wonderful. So here we are, Parshas Tetzaveh, right? So we're going to speak about a couple of the mitzvahs for Parshas Tetzaveh, and we're going to talk about the Shana, the Ibayur, as it's called in Yiddish, or the Shana Mu'uberes, the pregnant year, as it's called in Hebrew, or the leap year, the leap month, and how it's all going to fit together in one lovely oneness. Okay, so among the mitzvahs in Parshas Tetzaveh are the begadim, the clothing of the Kohanim in the Beis Hamikdash. And we know the Kohen Gadol had 8 garments, and the regular Kohen had 4 garments. You see, the Kohen Gadol had those extra garments of the ephod and the hoshen and the me'il and the seats, and we're going to talk about a couple of them. Okay, so the two that we're going to really talk about, one is the hoshen, or known as the hoshen mishpat. It was flat. We're told it's made from a combination of materials, gold and 3 colors of wool. There was techelis, the color of the heavens, argaman, purple, and tala'ah shani, crimson. It was a wool that was dyed in a certain worm, the tala'as worm, tala'ah shani, crimson. It was folded, and inside was the urim v'tumim that were used by people in the know. The Kohen Gadol could read great messages and predictions on his heart. And of these, there were 12 stones. There were the four rows, and each shevet had a stone with his name engraved on it. So that was the hoshen. Then the ephod. The ephod was kind of like an apron with like a backwards apron. And Rashi writes it's what princesses wear when they go horseback riding. It had a belt. It was behind his back. It went down to the heels of his feet. It had 2 straps over the shoulders. And these 2 straps each had a shoham stone on it. A great big shoham stone with the names of the shvatim, 6 tribes on each shoulder. And the really exciting part is that the hoshen and the ephod had to always be connected. And so the top of the hoshen had rings and straps that connected it with the chains connected to the ephod straps. And there were also rings on the bottom of the hoshen that connected it to the ephod. So in all 4 corners, it was tightly attached. So the ephod and the hoshen are tightly connected. And the Torah concludes this set of laws, 28:28, below Yizach hachoshen me'al ha'ephod. The hoshen shall not move from above the ephod. They should be tightly together, never separated. And this is one of the 613 mitzvahs, to never separate the ephod and the hoshen. It's a mitzvah lo ta'aseh. Don't separate them. Again, a garment made for the Beis Hamikdash. Now, when the Kohen Gadol was taking off his holy garments at the end of a workday and putting on his personal clothes to go home in the evening, the Kohen Gadol doesn't remove the hoshen from the ephod and then reconnect it in the morning. You mustn't think that he separates them. They remain as one, even though they're 2 separate garments, because there were 8 garments and not 7 garments that the Kohen Gadol had. But they had to remain connected always. Doesn't that remind you of last week? Somehow last week we spoke about not removing the poles from the aron, the badim, even if it wasn't traveling. We discussed last week one of the 613 mitzvahs, not to remove the poles from the aron. And here's another one of the exciting mitzvahs. We're going to find out the psychological and spiritual meanings, that the ephod and the hoshen had to always be bound together. L'chaim, l'chaim. Okay, so Rashi says, there's a very interesting Rashi. If you're the kind of person that likes to look inside, go to chapter 28, line 4. It's right in the beginning, close to the beginning of today's chitas. We're living with the times. It's today's chitas. I'll give you a minute. We'll just look a little bit. Yes, we'll wait. I can see people are scurrying about, getting their chumash. We have these serious students here. They're going to check. And it's nice to look inside. Okay. So the pasuk is saying, these are the garments which were made, the hoshen and the ephod. That's how it begins. Okay, so Rashi, so the hoshen, Rabbi says, a takshit keneged halev, it's an ornament worn against the heart. Very short Rashi, but the ephod is a very, very, very long Rashi. We're going to just look at some of it. So Rashi says about the ephod, Lo shamati v'lo matzati, b'braisa, I have not heard nor found in a braisa a description of its form. And then Rashi puts these amazing 3 words, v'libi omar li, my heart tells me. See, now Rashi gets messages from his heart. My heart tells me that it was girded on the back from behind, its width being as wide as a person's back, like a type of apron, which is called pourze in Old French, that here are the key words that noble women wear when they ride on horseback. Shahogrim hasaros kusherochvos al hasusim. So this is quite an exciting story. Okay. So Rashi tells us this, that his heart tells him that the ephod was like what princesses wore when they went horseback riding. And everyone wonders how Rashi knows this. So there's a famous story, you might have heard it. Rashi sees princesses riding in horses in Troyes, France, and he wondered, why did Hashem show him this sight? And then he had this flash, his heart told him, that's what the ephod looks like. So Rashi was in the midst of writing his commentary on Chumash. Can everyone visualize this, please? Rashi was in the midst of writing his commentary on Chumash, and he wonders, what did the ephod look like? So the Rebbe said about this at a Fabringen, that Rashi had the perspective of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov taught that everything a Jew sees or hears is a lesson in our avodas Hashem, in our service of God, and there are no coincidences. So the Baal Shem Tov is not just saying it's hashgacha pratis. He's also saying, but he's not just saying that. The Baal Shem Tov says the fact that you saw it means there's meaning for you there. So Rashi took it as a lesson for what the ephod looked like and put it into his commentary in Chumash. And Rashi uses this expression, v'libi omer li. And it's twice in the same Rashi. It's also, it's down a few paragraphs, v'od omer li libi, that there's a proof that this is a type of garment. It's amazing. Like I think it's quite, I don't know if this is the only place where Rashi uses these terms, but it's quite rare that Rashi it's so exciting. Okay, so back to, what does it mean that the ephod and the hoshen can't be disconnected? The ephod and the hoshen, what does it matter if the Kohen Gadol is taking off his garments at night and the ephod and the hoshen become separate? Why is it a lo ta'aseh from one of the 613 mitzvahs that the hoshen shouldn't move from the ephod? All the other garments were separate garments. Okay, so Zion Adar Tufshin Memches, 1988, Parshas Tzitzave. The Rebbe spoke about this, and the Rebbe presented a powerful insight. Yes. So the Rebbe quotes the Radomsker Rav, who spoke about Roshei Tevos, like you take the first letter of, let's say, 3 words and see what that spells out, the Rashi to the first letter of each word. So the first quote for the word hoshen, the quote is from Tehillim 97, line 10. We also say it in the Friday night in Kabbalah Shabbos. It's Shamar Nafshos Chasidav. So in Tehillim, it means Hashem preserves the soul of his pious ones. So hoshen is actually Gematria 358, like the word Mashiach is Gematria 358. So that's the hoshen. So the abbreviation, so Shamar gives you the shin, Nafshos gives you the nun, Chasidav gives you the ches. They're not in the exact order, but it's those three letters that go on the word hoshen, according to the Radomska Rav, who is into Rashi Tevos. What about ephod? And the Arizal and the Alter Rebbe also bring this down. So it's Tehillim 51, line 15. This was after David's connection with Bathsheba. And David HaMelech says, Alamda poshayim drachecha, v'hatayim elecha yeshuvu. I will teach sinners your ways, so transgressors will return to you. So the word alamda gives you the aleph, pashayim gives you the pei, drachecha gives you the dalet, and v'hatayim gives you the vav, the four letters of ephod. I will teach sinners your ways, so transgressors will return to you. So David HaMelech is embarking on a mission. Amalda pashayim drachecha. I will teach sinners your ways. So David's point is, I can speak from experience. So I mean, there's a lot. I had the chus of learning the story of David and Bathsheba from Mora Khan at Beis Rif, Galea Khan. She's one of the world's experts, and she shows how David never sinned. Like each thing, you can see that it actually wasn't, but because it looked like it was, he did a lot of tshuva. David did tshuva. So things happened the way they did, so David could open a path for Baalei Tshuva. Very exciting. So you can see for the ephod is connected with transgressors and sinners. Okay, so hold that thought. That's the ephod and hoshen thought. Now we're going to tie it with something else. As you know, this year we add an extra month. The Jewish calendar has issues that the Muslim and Roman calendar don't have. The Muslim calendar is based on the moon. The Roman calendar is based on the sun. And we know the sun completes its orbit every 365 days. That is known as a solar year. And a lunar orbit for each month takes 29 and a half days. Okay? So those you can multiply it by 12 and get an artificial year. So with the solar calendar, the 365 days are just split into 12 parts, which are artificial months. Why are they called artificial months? Because we know January, February, they're not based on the movement of the moon. They're called a month, but they don't start as our months start on Rosh Chodesh and the full moon on the 15th, etc. Okay, so the moon, like in the Muslim calendar, the moon, they just take and times it by 12, they get 354 days. A solar year is 365 days, and 365 minus 354 is 11 days. So the lunar year always ends 11 days before the solar year. That's why the Muslim holiday of Ramadan can be in any season of the year. It's not attached to have to be in any season. It circulates because the fact that the solar year is 11 days short of the lunar year. And we know Jews are compared to the moon. Our months are based on the moon. Rosh Chodesh is always lunar. HaChodesh Hazel Lochem. So where does our problem come up? Because it says about Pesach, Shemor es Chodesh Aviv, keep the spring season. Pesach has to be in the spring. So what to do? We need to follow the months, but Pesach is based on the solar season. So this is the complexities of the Jewish calendar, to synchronize the solar and the lunar calendar. So what we do, as you know, is every 2 or 3 months, we add an extra month to catch up to the sun. So this year, like this year has 13 months. So the year is not 354 days every 2 or 3 years. It catches up or goes a little ahead. And it's known as, in Hebrew, a Shana Ha'ibor, a pregnant year, because it carries an extra month. Shana Me'uberes, it's also known as. So what, of course, we want to know is the inner significance. So the sun and the moon represent two forces and each can't be ignored. And we can't define our life based on just one of them. We have to base our lives on their integration, although it's not an easy integration, the synthesis of these two forces, which are the differences between the sun and the moon, the differences between constancy versus creativity. The Rebbe discussed this at a Farbrengen on Vav Tishrei 1983, Tavshin Mem Daled. It was also a leap year. You know, Vav Tishrei is Rebbe Tzimchana's Yurtzeit Zechusa Yagein Aleinu. Okay, so the Rebbe said there's two types of natures. There's a solar-like nature and a lunar-like nature. So lunar, we know the word lunatic comes, the moon can have meshugana traits, and the moon waxes and wanes while the sun is consistent. The sun, as we know, doesn't wax and wane. So we're dividing two natures into people. Choice one, cherishes consistency. These are people who go to sleep at the same time every night. They might cross the block at the same spot. They sit at the same place in shul. They use the same toothpaste. They come on time. And they practice packing in advance to see if everything fits. I remember YY speaking about this, that there's some people who practice packing 2 weeks in advance to make sure everything fits. And then there's people like him who pack in the back seat of the taxi. Is when he's finally trying to pack his suitcase on the way to the airport. So there's different kinds of people. No judgment, of course. Okay. So this crazy mooting artists, they're not boring. They wax and wane. And the sun people try to stay the same. We can rely on them. That's always a good thing, to rely on them. So the Rebbe spoke about the Musaf on Rosh Chodesh, describes two kinds of offerings in the Beis Hamikdash: Tamidim b'sidram u'masafim b'hilchasam. Let me say it again: Tamidim k'sidram u'masafim k'hilchasam. So what is the tamid? The tamid is the lamb in the morning and the lamb in the afternoon. Keves achad b'boker. So every day we had to offer one lamb in the morning and one lamb in the afternoon. And we spoke about it other times when there was a vote in the Sanhedrin, which is the most important pasuk in all of Chumash, and there was Shema Yisrael and Bereshis Bora and V'ahavta l're'echa kamocha. But this was the winning one sheep in the morning and one sheep in the afternoon. And why, might you ask? Because it doesn't depend on my mood. I have to offer the sheep in the morning and the sheep in the afternoon. Consistency. It's the value of consistency. My neighbor Miriam Wilson says she says kior echad b'bok. She washes one sink of dishes in the morning and one sink of dishes in the late afternoon consistently. It doesn't matter the mood. So this is the idea of consistency, regardless of the weather. And then YY puts in a comment here. They say that people in New York are more creative than people in Miami, because Miami, the weather never changes, and in New York, you never know. But I haven't done a sociological study, so if anyone here is from Miami, don't cry or anything. Okay. All right, so the Korban Tamid was constant. And what about the Musafim Kehilchasam? The Musaf offerings are always different. There's one for Shabbos. There's a different one for Rosh Chodesh. Each Yontiv has its own Musaf offering. So it's reflected in this Tefillas Musaf. We mentioned when we daven Musaf what the offering is. So there's an element of sameness, and then there's an element of things being different. Okay, so hold that thought. Pirkei Avos, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had 5 students. He used to enumerate their praises. Hayahaya Monesh Vacham. So what is the Peshat? So the first one is Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanes. He's Sud She'enu Ma'abed Tipa, a cemented cistern which doesn't lose a drop. Anything he learned, he always remembered. Then we get up to Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, Kamayan HaMisgaber, a creative spring, gushing forth new water. So why does Yochanan ben Zakkai enumerate these praises? So the Rebbe said Yochanan ben Zakkai watched the transition from Beis Hamikdash Yiddishkeit to post Beis Hamikdash Yiddishkeit. Yochanan ben Zakkai was the leader of the Jewish people during the Chorban Bayit Sheni. He wanted to negotiate with the Romans, and the Zealots wouldn't allow him. So he faked his own death. His students put him in a coffin and brought him out of Yerushalayim for burial. He went to meet Vespasian, the commander-in-chief, who would later become the Caesar of Rome. And Yochanan ben Zakkai got 3 things from Vespasian. Number 1, a doctor for Reb Tzadok who fasted for 40 years. 2, not to destroy the dynasty of Rabbi Gamliel. And 3, Tain li Yavna v'chachamecha, preserve Yavna and the sages, the Torah world. So Vespasian gave Yochanan ben Zakkai his 3 requests, and then he destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. There was the Chorban. But Yochanan ben Zakkai saw the Beis Hamikdash going up in flames. And then he went on to rebuild Torah from Yavna. He watched the transition. So there was now no more Korbanos, no more Korban Pesach. So when we have a Seder now, did you notice we just have matzah and moreh? We don't have that barbecued lamb in our sandwich ever since the Korban Beis Hamikdash. Yochanan ben Zakkai understood Yiddishkeit is going into a completely new mold, where learning and davening will replace korbanos. There's going to be no korban tamid. So, and now Yiddishkeit is moved to homes, to shuls, to yeshivas. It's Yochanan ben Zakkai who did it. And the transition has been successful. We are here today. So the Rebbe said that's why Yochanan ben Zakkai had to identify the strengths of his students. What are the qualities needed for the survival of the Jewish people? He enumerated 5, and each quality is critical. So 1 is to hold on to what you have. That's the sod she'enu ma'abe tiper, the cistern that doesn't lose a drop. And then we have Elazar ben Arach, Ma'ayin HaMiskaber. That's creativity. It's not enough just to keep the old water and not lose it. We need someone who will bring fresh water. And there's a medrash on this that fishermen know the best time to fish is after a rain. Fish come up to the surface because fish crave to drink new rainwater. Why? I mean, they're constantly submerged in water. That's where they live. But they want fresh water. They want even fish want something new. There are teachers who repeat lessons in the same monotone voice for 50 years, but we need to hear something new, creative. We need that Hamayan HaMiskaber. Okay, and the other 3, just quickly, were Yeshua ben Hananiah, who was Ashrei Yuladato. Happy is the one who bore him. We need strong Jewish mothers. Yosei HaKohen was a chassid. We need Hasidim. Shimon ben Nathanael was Yirei Hate. He didn't want to be, he had fear of being separated from Hashem. He had awe in Hashem's presence. But we're going to focus on these two that the Rebbe compared to the lunar cycle and the solar cycle, the first two. So the lunar cycle is Kamayan HaMeskaber, because the moon is new, Chiddush. It's always new. Each month it's new. Chodesh, the word for month, comes from Chiddush, something new. By the sun, there's no Chiddush. So the Chiddush is the rebirth that comes after difficulty, after the moon wanes. Creativity is unleashed by challenges, by questions, by pain, by changes. Now, some people naturally gravitate towards one, and some people naturally gravitate towards the other. Some go to Tamidim Kasidram, the Tamid consistency, and others go to Musafim Kihil Kasam, creativity. But even if by nature we gravitate to one, my avodas Hashem is to synthesize the two. We all need to synthesize the two. So as the Rebbe said, someone could tie it, and my nature is this, not that. This is what I'm like. My nature is just one of them. Somebody could tie it. But we were created to serve our Creator, and service of Hashem has to include both, and both with full vigor and enthusiasm. I have to challenge myself to embrace the other pattern as well, and to synthesize the two. Okay, so every morning to meeting Kasidram. It doesn't matter if I was up late, it doesn't matter I'm in the middle of creating something, consistency, even if it's not our nature. Isn't that interesting? On the other hand, some people are great with consistency. They're in bed at 9:30 p.m., and when they hear something creative, they might run away, or even feel it could be heresy, something creative. It doesn't fit in with their consistent paradigms. So each person has to challenge themselves. Musafim kihil chasim, find new ground, find fresh water from the well springs. Hamayan hamiskaber. We need that fresh material. We need to find the fresh material. It's not enough just to remember everything we learned. We need the fresh material. So in this synthesis, the majesty of a divine life emerges. This is the Shana Ha'ibor, a year dedicated to the synthesis of these two forces. So it's hard to make peace between the two. We can see these in communities. There are people who are creative. They shun consistency. There are people who are consistent. They might shun creativity. So the ability to challenge ourselves and synthesize the two is a unique blessing. And this is the Shana Ha'ibor. This is the year we have now to do this. Okay. On another level, the Levana and the Chama, the moon and the sun, represent the Baal Tshuva and the Tzaddik, or we could say the righteous Jew and the struggling Jew. So there's the model of the Tzaddik and the model of the Baal Tshuva. So the Tzaddik consistently serves Hashem. The Baal Tshuva finds Hashem, he has stumbling blocks in the finding of Hashem. So Tshuva is, we return because we were away. Shuvu banim shovavim. I returned because I was alienated. The Alter Rebbe says Tshuva is made for tzaddikim because everyone has been lost. Everyone has been lost. The soul's descent into this world makes tshuva necessary, not only because of mistakes. In other words, we have to do tshuva just because our soul came down into this world. My soul came down into this world, there's already a crisis. I'm displaced. I'm in a displaced person's camp. Therefore, there's a tension, and I have to find my way back to Hashem. And the Alter Rebbe emphasized, tshuva is not just for Balei Tshuva, it's for tzaddikim too, to recognize that life is filled with tension. And the gullus of the soul coming into this body We all need to do tshuva from that, to come back to Hashem. Yes. Okay, so now we're going to tie it all together. The hoshen and so the Kohen Gadol had an ephod and a hoshen. The hoshen was on the panim, the front of the Kohen Gadol. The ephod was on the acharayim, the back of the Kohen Gadol. It hung on the lower back from his waist to his heel. So the Kohen Gadol didn't see the ephod. The hoshen was on his heart. And the hoshen represents, again, the abbreviation Shomer Nafshit Chasida, that Hashem guards the souls of his Chasidim, preserves the souls of the pious. So the ephod, so that's the hoshen. Those are the tzaddikim. The ephod are for those who are acharayim. Okay, so the Alter Rebbe says they also come, the Elokim Acharim also come from Elokim, but they're Acharayim, they're the hind part. And the hind part is someone you don't like and you have to give them something, you throw it over their shoulder. Someone who betrayed you, you throw it over your shoulder if you have to give them something. Someone you love, you look them in their eye, you're face to face, panim al panim. So the klipas get energy from Hashem, but there's no intimacy. There's no experience of Kedusha. So people lost in the acharayim of life, they don't see the face of life. They just see the back of life. Living a life of spiritual dysfunction, not in touch with Hashem's face. So the Kohen Gadol lifted up these people also through the ephod, because you can't lift some without going down to schlep them up. Someone who's drowning, you have to jump into the water to save them. And God forbid, if someone doesn't know what they're doing, they can be schlepped down. The Baal Shem Tov interprets the Gemara, Kol mi she'enu b'chiyav b'davar, enu motzei chavero b'davar. If you're not obligated to do a mitzvah, you can't yotzi, you can't exempt someone else. We know this. For example, a child can't blow shofar for an adult on Rosh Hashanah because the child has no obligation. It's the same with reading the Megillah. Someone who's mechoyev, someone who's obligated, can exempt another person. Mechoyev means obligated. The word chayev also means guilty. So the Baal Shem Tov taught someone who is not guilty, ein motze es harabim, me chayavasam. Someone who is not guilty can take out the people from their guilt. If he's detached, he can't take them out. Okay. So now Rabbi Jacobson says, open your hearts. Moshe, so the Kalmera Rebbe writes, Moshe comes down from the mountain and sees the golden calf. Moshe breaks the luchos. Why not give them back to Hashem if the Jews are undeserving? Why not hide them? Why break them? The luchos were priceless. It was a divine creation. Sell it on eBay. No, that was a joke. Forget that. Take that back. Okay, so some people say superficially Moshe got upset. That's why he broke them. But it's Moshe. Moshe knew what the luchos were. So the Kamarna Rebbe says, the Gemara says, when someone breaks kalim in their anger, it's a form of avodah zorah. Moshe comes down the mountain. He sees the Jews did avodah zorah. Moshe asks himself, how do I lift them up? So he has to go down to them. How he goes down to them is by breaking the luchos. The Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol has to put the ephod on his back. He wraps it around himself. All the Jews who are living in a state where Hashem is concealed, in the Acharayim state, the Kohen Gadol has to lift them up. The hoshen is the Shamar Nafshos Chasidav, protecting the souls of the Hasidim. Remember, we said hoshen is Gematria Mashiach. So we get all the Jews included. The ephod, I'm going to teach sinners your ways, and transgressors your ways. So the ephod is a different avoda. It goes down the back. The Kohen Gadol has a gartel and ties the ephod. Why? Because there could be a tendency to drop the peshayim, the transgressors. It's easy for a Rebbe to be Rebbe for wholesome people. It's hard to be a Rebbe for broken people. It's harder to be a Rebbe for people who need recovery, who need to be uplifted. So it's tied on so those people don't get lost. The Kohen Gadol has to tighten the ephod so it doesn't fall off. So just to finish up, you might think the Kohen Gadol has an ephod for these people and he has a hoshen for those people. No, lo yizach ha-hoshen me'al ha-ephod. They have to be tightly connected. They can't detach from each other even for a moment. The ephod and the hoshen have to remember they're never detached. And now we have the leap year bringing together the sun and the moon. The tzaddik must encompass the world of the Baal Tshuva. The Baal Tshuva has to remember he's also a tzaddik in the essence of his soul. And we have both in our lives. We have moments of choshen, when the Orim Maturim are right over our hearts, and we know the right thing to do. And there's moments of living only from our back and only back to back. But these are all part of our lives. So the problem is when we detach the ephod from the hoshen. So the journey in avoda is that to be in touch with both, that the ephod and the hoshen must remember that they're part of each other. And one without the other is puzzle. We need them. We need to have them both. Yes, and the tzibur, the word tzibur is actually tzaddik, beinani, v'rasha. To have a congregation, we need all of the Jewish people together. We can't run away from the ephod. So we have to uplift the people and turn it into a beged of the Kohen Gadol. And this is the lesson of lo yizach ha-hoshen me'al ha-ephod. Don't let the hoshen be separated from the ephod, especially in the leap year. The sun and moon are coming together. And what else exciting time? The Shana HaIbru. And we're reading now this week, we're reading Va'ata Tetzave, the parsha of the hoshen and the ephod. And we add a month so the moon can catch up to the sun. It's, and even gets a little bit ahead of the sun. That's what's happening now. And then the sun has to do a little catching up. So what really happens is the koach hatshuva, that b'makum balei tshuva omdim ein sadikim gemorim omdim, where the place where balei tshuva stand, even a perfect tzaddik can stand. So the moon can reach places the sun can never reach. Now the sun has to catch up with the moon. Yes, so and the moon trying to catch up, it's our yearning to find consistency and the presence of Hashem always in our lives. So that and when we feel the void, we want to catch up, we want to be there. And this allows us to go beyond, beyond people who never had the void. And this is the idea we spoke of, even the void, we use it as a catalyst for growth. We use all of these experiences as a catalyst for growth. And this is this month and this week and this year. Okay, so this week is going to be Purim Katan. And the Shulchan Aruch ends, the very end of is saying that when they ask, what should we celebrate Purim Katan? And the answer is Leiv Tov Mishta Tamid. A good-hearted person is always feasting, always partying. So the answer is yes, make a party. Any reason you have to make a party is a good party to make, especially in Adar. And we should unleash our creativity and our consistency. They should be bound together. L'chaim, l'chaim. This is such a lovely group. Let's take a quick get well picture, and then we'll bid ourselves adieu. So, oh, beautiful. Thank you, Nachum. Okay, everyone, smile. So Yitzhak Feivish Ben Brina Malka should have a refuah shalema and continue teaching us the inner secrets. 1, 2, 3. Great. Mwah. Love you all. Thank you so much for coming. Have a great and joyous week. Shalom, shalom.